Don't look now, but the Jets making moves heading into the season. The big uglies down in front, getting depth there, getting better there. There's also rumors swirling about other positions. They may not be done. Let's go. Tim McMaster along with Zach Rosenblatt. Like the show, of course. If you're here watching on YouTube, give us the thumbs up. Give us those 5-star reviews. Start of the season is the best time to get those in. And you can see we have a third chair today. Joe Caparoso. Did I say that with a little Italian
You
edge?
did. You nailed it. All those vowels, they can be challenging.
Joe is here, of course, the godfather of Badlands. We're going to call you that too.
I'm changing my LinkedIn
That's
to that.
good.
I think, going forward. I like that.
Yeah.
He's here to talk about it. He was excited about the moves yesterday. And Zach here, of course, as well. We'll get into all that stuff. We'll talk about Justin Fields' inability to throw downfield, if we should be worried about that yet, if we should wait to be worried about it through 2-3 games. Before we get to that, Zach, we have one piece of business that we need to take care of, and that is Michael Dunn has a new home.
Yeah,
it's not in New Jersey. We're sad about that. In fact, it's really far away.
As far away as he could be, probably. Yeah,
but Michael Dunn is heading to the 49ers. They announced yesterday officially. We got the inside source information. The family's excited about it. Generally, how do you feel about Michael Dunn heading west?
Oh man, it's huge. I was so happy for him. You know, it's he'd been waiting around for an opportunity, and I was hoping the Jets would sign him. They just don't want to have the best offensive lineman in the NFL, I guess. But you know, but we're thrilled for Michael, and I'm sure Marissa is going to enjoy having to fly across country to see him. But very exciting.
Fly across country to see him, and Marissa has a new little one as well.
Yeah.
So the two young kids. We get the inside, like the wife, the story from the wife, right? She was so excited, but then like. Also, oh my God, he's going to be in California.
By the way, like having the Marissa wife inside is helpful because she knew Jowon Briggs' wife pretty well. So
yes,
she was like very excited
we'll
for
talk
Jowon
about
Briggs.
that a little bit.
Yeah, so we'll get into him a little bit. But yeah, so we got some insight into how great of a guy that Jowon is. So,
all right, one more little note before we get into the actual content, and that is Joe Stout Saturday 4 p.m. The event coming together. You want to give it a plug here at the beginning?
Sure. If you haven't yet, get your ticket at badlandstoj.com. It's our season, I'll call it a season kickoff hybrid party and live podcast, 4 to 7, the Stout Grand Central location. Make sure you go to the right one. There's a few Stouts throughout the city. Our entire Badlands team will be there, including you two gentlemen. We'll be riffing on stage for a few hours with a range of different segments between me, Will, Paul, Connor, Meigs, Dan, everybody you're accustomed to hearing and seeing from. Going to be doing some fun giveaways. We have Jets Bucks sweet tickets that we'll be giving away, courtesy of Dynasty Financial, some jerseys. Patreon will be in the building. I'll be a little more like free flowing and loose than the last one in a good way. So just come hang. It's going to be a big crowd. We're looking at somewhere between 200 and 250 Jet fans packed into a bar on a random Saturday with only like 13 days until week 1. So if you haven't yet, badlandstoj.com, and all of us will be there Saturday. Looking forward to it.
Starting earlier this time too, so it could get rowdy. Yeah.
Yes, I know. Actually dangerous when I think of that crowd. Man, I'm picturing in my head like the 10 to like midnight window last time, but we'll be all right. Hydrate, pace yourselves. It's my first night out post baby as well. So
wow, yeah.
I'm going to need some support out there. So just keep funneling me waters in between beers and I'll be all right.
It was the first show was a lot of fun, meeting all you guys that listen to the pod and are on the Badlands community and putting faces and names and stuff like that. It was a lot of fun. So I hope to see everybody there on Saturday.
Amen.
Yeah, it should be a blast. I'm excited after missing the first one. All right, let's get to the Jets' actual news, and that is shoring up the defensive line. A pair of trades on Wednesday. The bigger of the two, Harrison Phillips from the Vikings. They give up a couple of 6th rounders, a pick swap and a 6th rounder. Phillips, legitimate defensive lineman, 29 years old. The Vikings also paying almost $4 million at the salary of a $13 million guaranteed over 2 years. He was a 2018 3rd-round pick out of Stanford, and he's been a consistent guy there in Minnesota. And now it gives the Jets someone to put next to Quinnen, which was maybe going to be Byron Cox. I don't know what it was going to end up being, but since you're the guest, Joe, I'll start with you. First thoughts on Harrison Phillips. On the
St. Fatty's Day yesterday, finally. We've been clamoring desperately for the Jets to address this. And look, these are two moves that if they made like 3 months ago at the start of free agency, we all would have been ecstatic then. It took maybe a little longer than we would have liked, but I will give credit to the Jets for watching training camp, agreeing with everyone that, oh my God, this is a real problem. Nandi can't play. Coward's hurt. Talefe has a couple nice moments, but he can't help you stop the run. And I think, like you said, Phillips is a legitimate starter. And I think you just gauge the reaction of Vikings fans and people who do what we do on the Vikings side of things. There seems to be a good amount of shock that they traded him away. They just gave him a 2-year extension. I think he's been a good player on the field. He seems to be one of their key leaders in the locker room off the field. And from a skill set perspective, is just exactly what they needed next to Quinnen Williams, like the perfect complementary player to him who could come in, really will start day one and be immediately an upgrade. And with Briggs too, he's going to be the third or fourth the best defensive tackle on the team right away. This is not a guy who's like a bubble roster player. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden you look at that depth chart, you feel a lot better if guys like Coward, Leonard Taylor are your fourth and fifth defensive tackle, not your second and third defensive tackle. Now you say, all right, we got Quinnen, we got Phillips, we got Briggs, we got those two chewing up reps. That's a pretty credible defensive line rotation to go with Will McDonald and Jermaine Johnson. Yes, I wish they had more depth at edge, but they still time until week 1. But this was the most glaring thing because teams were just going to be able to tee off on the Jets running the football. And Phillips and Briggs, particularly Phillips, are going to allow the Jets to slow that down. And I'm not worried about draft collateral this far in advance. Tell me how many picks the Jets have April 1st of next year. We're talking about late day 3 pick swaps. They still have their first. They still have their second. They still have 2 fourths. They have the flexibility they need. And these are not guys who should be one and done, right? Like Phillips could start here the next 2 or 3 years. Briggs could be a rotational piece the next 2 or 3 years. So it's hard to complain if you're a Jet fan. Yes, I wish this maybe happened a couple months ago, but it's also not happening in week 6, which I feel like it would have with Joe Douglas. So I'm happy.
It's nice that, Phillips is 29. The last few years, it just feels like, they need to plug a hole.
That's the Muji rule. That's the Muji rule. You got if you're 30, you're too old. So
yes,
that and that's a nice change because hey, everyone loves veterans, but the 34-year-old guy that no one else wants and bringing him in. Yeah, he was great 7 years ago. Here he is. That it hasn't been working. So this is a guy that's kind of at the end of the prime part of it. Go ahead, Sam.
Yeah, it's funny. So in my job, when we talk to the coaches and stuff, you can kind of usually get a vibe of how they feel about a position or a player. And I'm going to talk about someone later where it's pretty clear that they're out on a guy. But yesterday, literally, we talked to the position coaches and we talked to the defensive line coach, Eric Washington, and he's kind of raving about everybody. So I didn't walk out of that thinking they're going to completely revamp. He did a good job of hiding it, I guess, because they probably knew they were getting these guys yesterday. At practice, I would think. And he did a good job of I was like, oh, okay. So maybe they do like Derek Nottie more than I thought they did, who I don't think he's going to make the team. I didn't think he was anyway. He's had a pretty bad camp and it's been pretty invisible for a veteran, but that was interesting to me. So they make that first trade. I didn't know much about Briggs, just asking around about him. By all accounts, he played really, really well at the end of the year. I think people in Cleveland were surprised they didn't call him up to get playing time sooner than they did. He played the last 6 games. I think PFF had him as a top 10 run stopper at defensive tackle.
Music to my ears.
Yeah, exactly. The Jets have needed run stoppers at that spot for a minute. I mean, who was the last really good one that could stop the run next to Quinnen? I don't even know. Maybe Sheldon Rankins, I guess.
Yeah.
But he wasn't a great run stopper, I feel like. So it's I mean, they needed these guys, and Phillips, that was a surprising one when I saw that name come across. Just he's a bigger name, and they're getting him at the rate. If you look at the salary, cutting it in half, you're only paying him $3.7 million this year. That's really good for a starting defensive tackle. He's an upgrade over Cowart. To Joe's point, when we started this offseason, I think fans maybe started to talk themselves into Byron Cowart and J2 Fele, but they had never heard of those guys before the Jets signed them. If you remember. So, and to your point, those are, you feel really good about those guys as rotational backups, not as the starter. So now you have all these kind of mix and match different skill sets you can work in. You have Leonard Taylor, who I think flashed a little bit as a pass rusher. Noddy's probably gone. They cut Fidarian Mathis today, so he's not even in the mix anymore. So I feel pretty good about saying the group is going to be, Quinnen, Harrison Phillips, Cowart if he's healthy. If not, he'd go to IR. J2 Fele, Leonard Taylor. I don't think I'm missing. Oh, and Briggs. So, I mean, that's a solid group of defensive tackles, not like elite, but Harrison Phillips, you don't feel bad about having your second defensive tackle. I asked our Vikings writer about why they got rid of him. He said once they got Hargrave and somebody else this offseason at defensive tackle, and they kind of loaded up there, and they wanted to save some money, and they wanted to get some draft picks and get a little younger. So it made sense from their perspective. But by all accounts, again, he's a leader, a guy in the locker room that everybody loves. And he's kind of a veteran on a team that doesn't have a lot of them. He has a lot of playing experience. Like Cowart is a veteran, but he only really had one season as a full-time starter. So this was just a shrewd move by Muji. I think he deserves a lot of credit for this. And to Joe's point, like, yeah, you would prefer they invested in defensive tackle a little bit more, either in the draft or free agency or something. But, you know, like you said, if you had signed Harrison Phillips in March, like everybody would have been celebrating. So these are moves that get a good grade. And Briggs could be like a sneaky good player for this team. Like he's young and there's still room to grow for him. And this coaching staff, I think, is gonna be pretty good. So these were wins, and you feel better about the defensive line today. I still, Joe's point earlier, I have concerns about the defensive end group. Like they started out a drill yesterday with Brady McGregor and Tyler Barron as the defensive ends, like because Jermaine and Will were not playing every snap. So that's scary. And you have Clemens. I know everybody hates him. He's fine as like your third or fourth ultimately. Rashad Weaver, I don't know how great you feel about him playing a lot of snaps. Like, it's a group that I still have concerns about, but you feel better about the defensive line as a whole now, I would say.
It's crazy how the defensive end has changed from 2 years ago to now, where it was like the strength to, oh my God. Go ahead, Joe.
I would say one more veteran at edge. You'd feel really good. They're like it's always like Jadeveon Clowney, who's been an almost Jet for about 10 years. It's someone like that who could come in and play 15, 18 snaps a game, minimize Clemens' role a little bit. He's going to make the team, but can you minimize the amount of snaps he's going to play? And then you're not dependent on, I don't know whether it's Weaver, Watts, or McGregor who ultimately stick. Maybe they're going to keep Barron just because he was a draft pick, but has he done anything this summer to pop or earn a roster spot? And if he was just a UDFA, I don't think they'd be keeping him. So you're not going to have every position perfect. You know, they still have some depth concerns at edge. They still have, I would say, some concerns at safety until we, see it proven otherwise, but you can at least stop the run now. And they went and got a quality starter and a quality rotational backup who's 23 and has upside. So, I am curious if there's one or two more veteran additions. It was interesting that your partner in crime leaked some wide receiver interest yesterday morning, and then it went right to the D tackle.
I know, yeah.
I still can't wrap my head around the Jets, like who that receiver would be, but there was so much activity league-wide yesterday. I do wonder if they're going to surprise us and be a little more aggressive there with some of the names that fans have endlessly been batting around.
Well, that's next on the rundown, Joe. Hang on.
I came up with a list that's not that exciting, but I just tried to go around. I basically based it around like who, like reporters have had like either on the bubble or like just off the 53. So it's like not ultimately guys that are huge upgrades, but that receiver room is a big problem. So
some of the names are intriguing because they're names you recognize, and some of them are like, oh, that guy was supposed to be good like a year ago. What happened? Maybe.
Yeah.
One more thing on Briggs, I'll say, while he is 23 and not like a veteran leader, Marissa did share a thing like him and his wife are already doing things in Cleveland, like backpacks for children going back to school and all this charity stuff. So everybody talks about needing wanting to bring in good character guys, but it seems like this front office leadership is actually doing that. On all fronts so far early on.
Yeah.
All right, let's get to the receivers. I mean, they're not alone. Like everybody wants receivers,
that's the thing,
it seems like, right? Like the Niners were the first team was like, they're going to get receivers.
When the Saints just traded for Devon Veal, they traded a fourth.
What the hell are they doing?
That's a lot of Sean Payton somehow talked his old friends into doing that trade, I guess. Mickey Loomis is in his back pocket or something. I don't know.
That was shocking.
Zach, you want me to just go? I'm just going to go through this list of
you can
names.
run through the list I made. I'm curious if any of these names excite Joe. Probably not.
Yeah, basically yay.
By the way, this is not me like saying there's interest or any. I just want
to. We're holding you to it. We're going to drag you up on stage and make you stand.
Well, if they trade for any of these, then I will take credit. But
okay, fair. All right, I'll give you my one-word reaction to each of these.
Yeah, there we go. I like that.
All right, up first, Deontay Johnson, Pro Bowler. In 2021, 107 catches with the Pirates. It's just 4 years.
The Pirates?
No.
I mean, sorry, the Steelers.
I think this guy has played in every team in the NFL in the past 4 months. So there's a reason for that. Yeah, I'm going to say a hard no there.
All right, and then we get to the Patriots where they're all available. Jalen Polk was a second-round pick, 2 years ago, 37th overall pick.
Intriguing one, yeah.
But the Patriots have a deep, dark history of drafting terrible receivers. So, is it? I don't know. How do you feel about Polk?
Kind of interesting. The Patriots aren't going to trade with the Jets, but if they cut him,
yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
It's the right kind of flyer to take where maybe Glenn and Sean Jefferson get through to him. I mean, the talent is there. It's not a terrible dart throw because you're not going to trade for him. You're just picking him up as like a dirt cheap signing. So I'm more interested in that kind of move than someone like Johnson, who's been ping ponged around the league clearly for a reason.
Javon Baker, Patriots.
I am kind of more interested in Polk of the two. I just think if you're going for that kind of guy, there's more upside there if it clicks.
And then one more is actually the veteran over there, which is Kendrick Bourne.
I've liked Kendrick Bourne for a really long time. I mean, he can play. He's definitely getting up there. He's been banged up. Is there that much of a difference between him and Tyler Johnson and Josh Reynolds at this point? I don't know. 2 years ago, I think there might have been, but it's not a terrible suggestion. He can play, right? If he had to start for a week or two, you're okay. But if you're asking much more than that, it'll get a little scary. I also worry about him health-wise.
But the problem with this entire list is but are they actually better than what the Jets have?
I know.
That's what you just keep going back to. Yeah. It's somebody different, but is it really better? Curtis Samuel on the Bills.
Yeah, I don't hate it. Interesting player, can be explosive at times, young enough where there might be a little upside. It's basically what you were hoping Malachi Corley could be in a little more of a proven package.
Yeah.
He could contribute on special teams theoretically. I don't hate it. People will like that because he's a name, and the Jets have been rumored with him for a long time, in and out. So I think he's at this stage of his career suited to be an interesting role player and do what the Jets were probably hoping Corley or Gibson could do in a better way. And I don't know if Pritchard's ready for that kind of role yet.
Yeah,
there's another name.
He ultimately would be like an upgrade over the Gibsons and Pritchards of the world, while not maybe being a great player, but.
Here's another name who, he was pretty good in Philadelphia, although maybe not as good as they expected him to be. But Jalen Reagor, who's now with the Chargers.
Yeah, not quite as okay. Maybe. There's a little upside there. Again, a name with some history, with some talent. He's this guy who could also probably help on special teams a bit. It's not a crazy dart throw in any way. These are the kind of names you're going to be looking at, right? That's
kind of my point with this whole exercise. It's this is the reality. Maybe there's somebody. I don't have Romeo Doubs on this list. That's the one that Jets fans really want.
Dobbs and Pierce are the two ones that everyone loves.
The reality is those guys are probably not getting traded by those teams, I would guess. Especially the Packers are banged up at receiver. But this is kind of where you're working when you're trying to find a receiver right now, where they're not the only team that needs a receiver. So
yes.
This one, Zach, to your credit, I actually had to look this one up. Jake Bobo in the Seahawks. 3 career starts.
Special teams guy more than anything.
A quintessential special teams backup receiver, which, look, if you're looking at the back half of your depth chart and you're well, let's get a guy who's actually played a little bit and caught some passes in the league. It's not crazy. I guess it depends at that level. How do they really feel about Brandon Smith and Skinner and Pritchett, and if they could really hold a roster spot this year? Because I would guess, and correct me if I'm wrong, Zach, we figure Garrett, Reynolds, Arian Smith, Tyler Johnson are definitely roster locks. And then from there, what's going to happen with Lazard's health? And then it's which of the young guys do you want to keep?
Yeah, I wouldn't qualify Tyler Johnson as a definite lock. I'd be surprised if he was cut, is more how I would phrase it. But
Connor would be devastated if they cut Tyler Johnson. It's his guy.
Yeah, it's the thing is guys like Brandon Smith and Quentin Skinner are fan favorites in training camp, but those are the kind of guys that once you get to the season, a lot of times, and you're actually going against the first string defensive backs and all that stuff, they kind of don't look as good as they do in practice against the same guys every day. But those guys have both earned jobs for sure, but it's hard to go into a season and be I'm going to rely on undrafted receiver X or journeyman receiver Y. So I'm not, those guys are great stories, but I wouldn't bank on them making an impact this season, I would say.
Yeah.
I'm going to group the rest because I feel we've reached the end of this.
That's fine.
Kind of an interesting exercise.
Yeah.
Trey Palmer, David Moore, Terrace Marshall, and Jalen Hyatt. Pick one.
Jet fans don't like Hyatt for silly reasons. Marshall's probably the most interesting to me of that group, with the draft pedigree and a couple moments that he's had. I would probably skew towards a guy like that.
This question from Dan Potter: are we even going to throw enough to need a wide receiver too?
I mean, look, Stone Smart.
I mean, is the running
Taylor
back the wide receiver too also, right?
Yeah, the running backs and tight ends are their wide receiver too in this offense.
I think Briggs is 100% second on the team in targets. Mason Taylor is probably third. And then now it's like a battle between like Reynolds and Stone Smart, maybe for fourth, or Braylon Allen. Wing T, remember,
but somebody
the
has
offense.
To play.
Yes.
Somebody has to play out there.
Somebody has to catch a pass.
Yes.
So I feel like that was a really depressing look at the potential receivers that the Jets could bring.
I'm more excited about the D-line. What can I say?
Yeah,
That's
why we
more
led
than
with that.
Skinny men. Yeah.
All right. Zach, you wrote a story this week. It's been a big story around this team, obviously, not just through the games, but also through practices, what we're seeing from Justin Fields. I don't think, when the Jets signed Justin Fields, we knew what we were getting, right? This is a running quarterback. Although he throws a pretty deep ball, supposedly. Yep. We just haven't seen it. But Saturday, 1 of 5, 4 yards. Oof. Not throwing deep in practice either. His quote was, "I've been thinking about this today. It's the defense taking it away. It'll come. No need to force it. When you force it, that's when tip balls and picks can happen. My mindset is always going to be to take what the defense gives me." Should that be his mindset in the preseason?
So he also had a quote a couple days later where he even pushed back further, where he was like, Joe knows, where he was like, if I have to throw it 8 yards every play, I will. And I agree with the question you're asking. I do think like this is the time to kind of take these risks, because at some point you're going to be down and you're going to have to throw the ball further down the field. Like they're not going to give you that space because the Jets are going to fall behind sometimes. Every team does, and the Jets are not going to be as talented as some of these teams. So do they have the ability to climb back into games when they fall down 13-3 or whatever it is? But on the flip side, like to his point, like Justin Fields ultimately is the quarterback he is. And it's probably better if they're structuring it in a way that like they're going to try and make it so he almost doesn't have to think when he's out there. And I think that's probably a good thing too. So in reality, he's not going to, 8 yards of completion would be one of the best completion rates in the NFL. So that's like pretty good ultimately, but that also factors in like you're getting long passes and short passes and all that stuff. So it's probably overblown, this whole conversation, but at the same time, like I do have concerns about his ability to like lead the passing. Like if you have to pass the ball more, can they do it? And can they come back against teams that are going to force them to throw it?
Also though, and I'll throw it to you, Joe, with this, like if you're going to be a team that runs as much as we all think, and they've been pretty honest about how much they're going to run, in some way you have to keep the defense honest. You have to throw some deep passes just so like they're not just completely crowding the line on you.
Yeah, there has to be some credible threat down the field at a certain point, or it's going to be that much harder to run the football. Look, if Fields, like you said, if Field throws for 8 yards an attempt, that'd be awesome. Now, the question is, can he really throw for like 7 or 8 yards and not 2 or 3 yards?
Yeah.
Look, I don't want to ever overreact to quotes. It's preseason. I think he was probably frustrated coming out of that second preseason game when he played well in the first preseason game. And I think you saw in the first preseason game taking what the defense gives you can be a positive thing, because you check it down to the right guy, it turns into a 20-yard gain anyway, even if it's to Andrew Beck of all people. So, and we're just not going to have a feel for who Fields is in Tanner Engstrand's offense until we see the whole package. And with him as a runner, because also him as a runner is going to set up opportunities down the field. Until he proves otherwise, Fields is a below-average NFL passer. I think the best case for him this year is, can he be around league average throwing the football? That would be the best case, and you hope he's great running the ball. Can he hit 1 or 2 deep passes a game or draw a pass interference? This is part of why they got Arian Smith. He's going to come out. They're just going to bomb one to him deep a half and see if he can draw a penalty or at least clear out space underneath. It's going to be a question until he hits a few of them and gets in rhythm with Garrett Wilson in a game scenario. So that's not going to happen against the Eagles. I think the Steelers game is going to be very ugly and very low scoring. So it's definitely going to be something to monitor. Fields is a lottery ticket bridge quarterback. He's not the second overall pick the Jets just took this year, where we all need to go completely insane on every little thing, like it's Sam Darnold or Zach Wilson a few years ago. So let's see. I think that he's a little overanalyzed, and that's on all of us too, where it's like, let's just let the guy get through the preseason in camp, and let's see how he looks in the full proper offense.
All right, Joe, I know you have to get going. We're going to keep going with the show, but thanks for stopping by, man.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
thanks for having me. See you guys Saturday.
Yep.
All right, bye.
All right, great stuff from Joe. And Badlands, of course, check them out on the feed. Everything on the feed, including us, but like there's so much content on the Badlands feed. And Joe like didn't even slow down when his daughter was born, like it seemed.
I know.
I think they added like a feature. He started doing
more.
Like he started doing like late night when he's up with the baby, just like talking about the Jets. So awesome stuff. All right, we got a few more things to get to, Zach.
Yeah.
One of which is, hey, there is one more preseason game here coming up Friday night against the Eagles. And while the starters aren't going to play, that just means that it's all about the guys on the fringe edges of the roster. So obviously some of that was changed by the trades yesterday, and that basically it moves the fringe, right? Like guys that maybe were safe or no longer safe and all of that. Wide receiver move could change it as well. But just a few guys from you that have the most on the line coming up on Friday night when they have a chance to get out there one more time without the starters.
Yeah, I always wind up hitting this receiver room because that's such a volatile position on this roster. But like the number one is kind of obvious, Malachi Corley. I mean, I don't know what he can even do at this point to make it, because I feel it feels very unlikely that he's going to make the roster. Like it would be surprising at this point. Like that's how bad it's been this summer. I alluded to earlier how like you can usually tell from a coach like how they feel about a player and stuff like that. Like Sean Jefferson was asked about Malachi Corley, and the way he hesitated to even start the question was he was like, Malachi, yeah, he's doing good. He's working hard. Like that was kind of like the vibe. And the same thing from like Glenn and Tanner Engstrand. Like usually if the most you can say is like he's in the film room, he's working hard, and not anything about football, that's kind of where you have a good read on where the situation is. He's someone that could get claimed by someone else. Like I don't know, maybe like Rodgers still likes him, or Robert Saleh. Maybe he gets claimed by somebody, but I just don't see him making it. And then receiver wise, the ones with the most at stake are those two guys I mentioned earlier, Brandon Smith, Quentin Skinner, and then also Xavier Gipson, Jamal Pritchett. Like these guys that are all fighting for roster spots either with each other or just broadly. Like those are the important ones on offense. And then on defense, let's see, I'd say that defensive tackle room all of a sudden just got really crowded. So a guy like, Leonard Taylor, I think is safe, but a guy like a Leonard Taylor, Derek Nottie, Peyton Page, those kind of fellas. And at Derek Bernard Converse had a really good game last week. He's someone who needs to kind of keep showing that to stick. I think he's probably going to make it ultimately now. I think he's shown enough and he's versatile, but he's someone who's been banged up in his career and hasn't really played much like NFL action. So, and then the converse of all this is like some of these guys that are just fighting for the last roster spots. If the Jets make some waiver claims, they might not stick around either. But these next few days are pretty crucial. I'd surmise that most teams, including the Jets, probably have a pretty good idea of what their 53 is going to look like. Like, I don't think one game is going to like flip the scales necessarily, but Aaron Glenn's insisting that like he's basing this on merit. Like, it's not like a projection as much as like this person has played well in practice, this person has played well in games. So like maybe a Gibson and Jamal Pritchett battle could come down to Friday. I don't know, but I think for the most part, they probably have their roster pretty figured out.
Were you putting out a 53 prediction?
Yeah, that'll come out either after the game on Friday or like Saturday morning. I would say I'll have my final projection. We do something with the Jets beat where we do a roster pool every year, but we have to turn it in before the first preseason game, so it makes it like way more challenging because you're like. Yeah. Because we don't know how even guys are going to look in that first. Like as soon as the game happened, I'm like, oh shit, I shouldn't have put so and so, or I should have put so and so. So it'll be interesting to look back at that roster, see how I did, while also looking ahead.
What's at stake in that pool?
Just bragging rights. Okay. But yeah, I won it a couple years ago. Last year I didn't do very well, some years it's easier than others. Like when the Jets have had like more loaded rosters, like there's not as many roster spots to be won at the bottom. It also actually part of the rule is who's active, like who's the week 1 roster. So like the roster maneuvering stuff that a team will cut a guy and then bring him back 2 days later, like that doesn't really matter. It just matters who's on the roster in week 1 too. So it's another wrinkle to it. But
but that's fair. I think that's fair though, because like let's cut out all the juggling and garbage stuff that teams do. I know the Eagles beat does this.
Yeah, they do. The Eagles beat does.
And I know Bo Wolf, former.
Well, actually, that reminds me because when I was on the Eagles beat, there was one year where I tied with Bo, and he got
because he took it way too seriously. I just remember that.
And he got the Bowl. When he got the edge because he like had more of the practice squad predicted or something. And so I was bitter about that for many years. Anytime I would go on his show, I would bring it up. But that's how it went. But to that point with the roster, like just as a look ahead, I'm sure we'll do a pod probably when the rosters are cut down on Tuesday. I would imagine would be the plan. Like I didn't realize this actually. I guess last year they changed the rule to where you could put 2 guys on IR the day of roster cuts with a designation to return, and they don't count towards the 53. So it allows you to like not to have to cut 2 guys because the rule before was you'd have to bring an injured guy through the cuts and then put him on IR. And now they're kind of making it so you don't have to do that. So Lazard is someone I have my eye on for that. And then the other 2 would be Cowart and Isaiah Davis. Both those guys have been out for a couple weeks now. So those will be interesting. And if Isaiah Davis is one that goes on IR, that clears the path for Donovan Edwards to make the team, or if they claim somebody on waivers. And if Cowart does that, clears the path for like a Peyton Page or something like that. So there's something to keep an eye into with these roster cuts.
All right. And then the other part of this roster cut situation is the waivers. Yeah. I would have said they're going to be desperate to find D-line help, but obviously that's kind of out now because of everything. It changes kind of after the moves yesterday. So when you do look at potential waiver additions, Joe mentioned the Patriots receivers. Because the Patriots, it's funny, they have like this receiver jam where they have too many receivers, but none of them are particularly great. So some of them are going to be available, but maybe Polk does end up just not making the roster. There's guys like that, but what other positions outside of receiver?
It's funny. The last couple of years, the Jets rosters were talented enough that they'd be among the league leaders and players claimed by other teams. I don't think that's going to necessarily be the case. They might have a few.
It never translated though. That's supposed to translate to being a playoff team, and it never translated.
Never did. The positions are probably the obvious ones. I mean, receiver, as we discussed, defensive end, tight end actually would be one I have my eye on actually, because I think you have Mason Taylor, you have Stone Smart. I think Andrew Beck is going to be on this team, whether it's practice squad in the beginning or whatever. But Jeremy Ruckert has had a really bad summer. And if there's a tight end that is a pure good blocker, which is what Jeremy Ruckert's role is supposed to be, like I could totally see the Jets claiming a blocker on waivers and cutting Ruckert or trading him or whatever it is. So tight end is one I have my eye on. Running back, honestly, if Davis is hurt, if they don't like enough what they've seen of Donovan Edwards, running backs get cut, and usually some pretty decent ones. Those are kind of the positions I'm at because they're pretty set at corner. I think at safety they're probably okay unless there's somebody they really liked. So I think it'll be tight end, wide receiver, defensive end would be the top 3, and maybe like a running back or a safety would be options as well.
All right. I just texted you, but do we want to do stock up, stock down one more time?
Yeah, we can do one last one since training camp just ended. Let's see. I probably should have come a little bit more prepared. I'll say stock down to somebody we talked about with Joe a little bit, Tyler Barron. I haven't noticed him all summer. We don't know what this regime is like in terms of draft picks. Joe Douglas had a thing where he almost never cut draft picks, especially the rookie year. The only time he did was Zach Kuntz, and he was a 7th round pick. Tyler Barron has not shown anything. They don't really have much at defensive end, but he's somebody that has not really jumped out to me. I'd say stock up. Brady Cook, actually, quarterback. I think he's looked pretty decent recently. And Tyrod Taylor's still hurt. I guess that'd be another IR candidate, which would be a bad one because they need him. But Tyrod's missing the preseason. We haven't heard an update since then, but he said he was going to miss the preseason. He had an operation scope on his knee. If he's not ready, they either need to keep Brady Cook or Adrian Martinez. I guess they could hypothetically go one active quarterback on the active roster and put like Brady Cook on the practice squad and just call him up for a couple weeks. I don't know if a team's ever gone into a season with one quarterback on the 53, but Brady, I don't know. He's inconsistent and his ball can wobble sometimes, but he's got a little moxie to him. He's got a command of the huddle. He's made some really good plays. So he'd be someone I'd have an eye on as like a stock up type of option. And Kene Nwangu, I'll say as a stock up. He's kind of flown under the radar a bit. I think I've kind of just assumed he'd make the team as a kick returner. He's gotten way more reps as a running back than I expected. He got a decent amount of carries in that preseason game. He has a role on special teams coverage. I'd say he's a pretty good lock for the 53, and he's going to play a pretty important role for this team.
All right, there's your stock up and stock down. Final one of the summer, and then we'll really figure out whose stock was up and whose stock was down with the final cuts coming up next week. All right, one more thing to talk about, MVP in the chat today. These have been going to individual messages rather than like an overall performance. I'm going to give this one to Dan. This is for you, Zach. Something to think about for later from Dan Botter in a conversation with Michael Dunn. Without Marissa there to reel him in, who knows how long the golf talk will go. Talking about your other show coming up with Connor Hughes. So just keep that in mind, when you guys are on SNY, maybe don't talk about golf.
I should tease that real quick for people who don't know about it yet. I'm going to be doing a weekly show with the bad Connor, as we like to say. It's called Jets Final Drive. It'll be on SNY's digital platforms. We're going live today, actually. If you want to hear from me talk again for this amount of time, I'll be on again today at 1 p.m. on Thursday. And then I believe it'll all be online after that. And we're going to be doing weekly, and it'll be the day after games. So it's a little different, like structure and format. I have to talk to Connor instead of Tim, so I probably won't get many words in. But I am looking forward to it. It's really exciting. They came to me with the idea. Connor and I, we have a good relationship, and we both disagree on a lot of things. So I think it'll make for a good convo. But I'm looking forward to that. Flight Plan is still the OG, though. Like, this isn't going anywhere. I don't want anybody to feel that way.
So an hour of golf, Marvel, and Taylor Swift
Sopranos
conversation.
And Sopranos for him. He's talking about that a lot. Yeah.
Maybe he's currently talking about the Sopranos.
Oh yeah, his whole thing right now is he's watching it for the first time, and he keeps writing like long tweets analysis of things he's seeing, and then like Brian Costello and other Jets writers keep making fun of him for being like 20 years
because everyone's already seen it. Yeah,
yeah, exactly.
Should we tell him about the end?
He knows about the end already. He said
okay.
So. He's not that clueless, I guess.
All right. So check that one out. We're just promoting everything today. We're
I know, right?
Show, promoting Badlands, promoting that new show.
We're men of the people.
Don't forget us here at Flight Plan as well. Good crowd today. Thank you. We appreciate everybody that tuned in live. Good group, biggest group of the summer so far. So hopefully that keeps going up as this team hopefully shows some promise and is in these games as we head into the season. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We'll talk to you next week with the 53-man roster on Flight Plan.